liability, and to identify the amount, frequency, and duration of the services. So that means that you have that ability to look at your budget, what your budget is, and the freedom to use those Medicaid dollars in a little bit more non-traditional ways. The freedom to say, this is when I need these services, this is how I want them to be delivered, and this is who I would like to provide these services for me. Authority, so you're going to hear a lot about budget authority. That does not mean an unlimited budget. We still have those waiver budgets, right? But it does mean budget authority to have more freedom in directing where that money is going to go. The authority to purchase supports, to choose your personal assistant who will provide you care, and then the authority to train, supervise, and then evaluate your employees and your services. Support is the right to obtain formal and informal resources to meet the needs and achieve your life goals, to select individual providers and direct, not reimbursement, but direct payment for several waiver services, and then also that support to know that if someone's not working, that they are your employee, right? You have that authority, that freedom, that support to be able to manage, hire, fire, whoever you need to. Responsibility, you have to remember that we have a responsibility to be true stewards of Medicaid dollars, right? There's also added responsibility and self-direction of additional steps that you're taking, because as a person choosing to utilize self-directed services, you're going to have more responsibility. You're the boss and you get to manage those funds and do that extra step. And then just confirmation, right? We want to make sure that we are confirming the importance of the leadership role of an individual, a person on the waiver, and their family in directing their services. So, please join me.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And then just so you know, the slide over there too, so you don't have to train your neck. Sorry. Still working on our routine.
We're great.
Yeah. So self-direction in Ohio is still relatively new, and want to say just a little bit about the foundation. So whenever we're talking about self-direction and self-directed services, the Financial Management Services Entity, and in the case of Ohio, DODD, GT Independence, they will be involved. So for any self-directed service you use, whether that's with budget or employment authority, which we'll get into later, GT is always going to be involved. DODD has a contract with GT Independence, so nothing that GT does is coming out of an individual's budget. They are here to help folks, and that is a part of the contract that DODD has. Self-direction is shifting the responsibility. It's a big culture shift for us in Ohio, and it's also a responsibility shift. It's helping an individual take control of the reins, if you will, and be more of an active player in the service and supports that they want and need for themselves. While self-direction is certainly not going to alleviate the workforce crisis we have going on, it is something that may help to alleviate it. Any individual who has a relationship with somebody in their life, they may, by knowing them, ask them if they might like to be a paid provider for them. So the more people that, it's not a traditional type service where, oh, here's a list of all the people that are certified to provide a service. You may say, gosh, I know this really nice lady from my church who I'm good friends with, and she gets me. She knows how I like stuff done. Maybe I can hire her to provide services.
So some of the key roles here in Ohio are obviously the person receiving services. So everyone, I feel like we have different names for people receiving services. A lot of times if you're working with GT, you're going to hear the term participant, right? The person receiving services, they're an active participant in their services, in their supports. Other key roles, a representative or a managing party. And so this is, maybe it is a legal representative, right? Maybe it's a legal guardian. Maybe it's a power of attorney. Maybe it's my friend Cindy, who I'm like, hey, will you help me manage my self-direction? It does not have to be a legal entity, right? But there is that person. If you want that support, absolutely 100%. You can build your team to help you direct your services. We have our SSAs, SSAs, SASS, service coordinators, right? Whatever you're called. Your case managers, your county board team, you're part of that. And then the financial management service. So we, as a financial management service, work with the county boards, we work with DOD, we work with participants to help facilitate the payment of the Medicaid dollars to either your staff, your chosen vendor, and to do that, right? We are not the authorizing source. That is still your county board. But we are able to kind of help you as you manage all of these things.
Thanks, Sarah. And choosing self-directed services means that you are choosing to take more responsibility, either in budget authority or employer authority. So budget authority is where you are making choices about how your funds are being spent, the dollars that are getting spent maybe for participant-directed goods and services, and things like that. Then there's also employer authority, and this is where you are acting as the employer for the person you're choosing to hire, whether that's in a co-employer model or common law, sorry, I always forget that, and you are taking care of the things that an employer would do for the person that for your employee or the person that you have hired. And again, what we can't stress enough is that with these extra flexibilities and the opportunity to take charge, there are also responsibilities. And that's what GT is here to help with, as well as perhaps the person that you have helping you self-direct.
Use the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So one of the biggest things that we can do is you're looking at self-direction. Again, Ohio has such an amazing team meeting, right? We have that person-centered team meeting. Utilize your team, utilize your supports. But you really need to know yourself and your needs, right? Have an idea of what the services are you need and what goals are you looking to achieve, in your next ISP span or in regards to your disability in your life. What are the things you need to do to stay independent in your home and in your community, right? We very much, the heart of GT, we want to see people have meaningful membership in their community, be able to stay in their homes. And then, is self-direction right for me, right? Am I ready to do what needs to be done? Is this something that I want to do, that I'm choosing to do? Again, use your team and work in your meeting to really determine what these needs are. Blue is not just one color, right? We all have different needs. Not every single person with a disability is the same, right? Like, not every human is the same. Your needs might look different than your neighbors. Your needs might look different than someone with the same diagnosis down the street, right? We are all individual human beings. So it's very important that, you can build up a plan that meets your specific needs and is tailored to you, and that's where some of that support's going to come in with your team and all those things identified in your ISP.
So in order to do self-direction and participate in self-direction, you need to be able to help negotiate rates for the staff you're going to pay, be able to sign off on paperwork, help train your staff, collect receipts. And I think sometimes people go, wow, that's a lot of stuff, I don't think I can do that. Does that mean that person cannot self-direct? Absolutely not. A person who may need some assistance can ask a family or a friend or their guardian or their other legal representative to help them with the self-direction tasks. An adult can do you can direct yourself. You certainly don't have to have somebody assist you. But if you need assistance, you absolutely can have somebody support you through this journey. You can designate a family member, a friend, a neighbor. It could also be a support broker if you have a self-waiver, which is a role on the self-waiver that is a person who is dedicated to assisting you with self-direction. If you are a minor child, your parent will be helping you self-direct most likely. The FMS will certainly help, as well as them being able to help for someone who's an adult. And then also, if you have a self-waiver and you're a minor child, you can hire a support broker who will also assist you. And this is, we sort of talk a lot about self-direction not being for everyone. If you don't want to do all of those steps, and you don't want to have somebody help you do those, you don't have to choose self-direction. But we certainly want to make sure people know that they can absolutely have assistance. The only person that cannot assist you with self-direction is the person you're going to pay to provide you the service. So if I am going to be your employee, I can't also help you hire me, sign my paychecks, pay stubs, and timesheets, and all of that stuff. So that is sort of an important caveat to remember. Some of the different self-directed services, and I know this slide is really small, hopefully it appears a little larger in some of the handouts, but there are self-directed services in all three of the waivers, but not every self-directed service is in every waiver. Certainly, as Gary mentioned, participant-directed goods and services is only in the level 1 and the level 1 in the self-waiver, sorry. And then budget authority is different. So not every waiver service has both budget authority and employer authority. So this is a slide which just sort of shows, again, which service has which authority. If you are on a self-waiver, you do have to choose one service to self-direct. If you are on the level 1 or IO, you don't have to choose any self-directed services, but certainly can. A small caveat when we talk about some of the flexibilities of using self-directed services and specifically participant-directed homemaker personal care. If you are going to hire someone to be your participant-directed homemaker personal care provider, that person has to go through the DODD independent provider certification. So if you're sitting at your team meeting, you've decided you want to hire your friend Cindy, we want to get you connected to DODD so Cindy can apply to become a certified independent provider. Then GT will help take care of the enrollment, and Sarah will certainly talk about that later. One big difference with the self-directed transportation service is the person that you would like to hire to provide self-directed transportation does not need to go through the DODD independent provider certification. There certainly is paperwork that has to be taken care of that we'll talk about a little bit later, things like background checks certainly, and driver's abstracts, among others. So we're going to talk right now a little bit about the participant-directed HPC service, and this is really the same service as homemaker personal care, except that it's participant-directed. And this is when you're having somebody help you with things like bathing, showering, maybe it's taking care of things around your home, grocery shopping, getting you to medical appointments or social activities. And again, as we talked about, for participant-directed HPC, the provider has to be certified by DODD, and then we are going to be, your SSA is typically going to send a referral to GT Independence, because not only does the employee that you're hiring have to be enrolled in the GT system, you yourself also have to be enrolled in the GT system. If you've never done any self-directed services, then you need to get enrolled with GT, so they're going to know who you are, and they then become sort of a part of your larger team to help you hire and work with your participant-directed HPC provider. The FMS GT folks can help talk to you about what makes sense for you, whether that's the common law employer method or the co-employer method. The other thing they can help you with also is negotiating the rate that you're going to pay your employee. There is certainly a minimum set by Medicaid as well as a maximum set by Medicaid. But it's important for everybody to know that you don't have to pay the maximum. If you have 2 or 3 participant-directed HPC providers, you can pay them all a different rate. So for instance, perhaps I need a lot of personal care and I hire Cindy to come in and help get me ready for my day in the morning, and she's helping me bathe, wash my hair, doing other personal care tasks. I may want to pay her more towards the top or the top of that pay scale. But perhaps then I hire Sarah to come help me go to the doctor's appointments or maybe out to some social activities. Maybe I don't want to pay her at the top of the pay scale. That is really up to you and your team to negotiate for that person that you are hiring. And then the next service we're going to talk a little bit about is self-directed transportation. This was a service that was added in July of 2022. It was designed to enhance a person's independence in the community and provide perhaps a little more flexible option for a more on-demand type service, if that makes sense. It can certainly be scheduled ahead of time, but it can also be done in a more on-demand situation. And it's designed to take you wherever you need to go. So whether that's to work, whether that's to a doctor's appointment, whether that is to social activities, whereas non-medical transportation, which is a service in all the waivers, is designed simply really to take you to and from work and or day activities. Step ahead of me, sorry. There's 2 options when you're using self-directed transportation. The first option is public transportation, and these are things like your metro buses, taxi cabs, Lyft, Uber, and things like that. This typically happens with a prepaid voucher, bus tickets, and also recently unveiled the self-directed transaction card. The other method that you can use self-directed transportation with is what sort of I call the friend, family, neighbor, coworker model. And that person is a person who you would get enrolled through GT Independence. They would have to do some paperwork, background check, driver's abstract, etc. The person does not have to be certified by DODD. And there are 2 mechanisms in this particular option for which payment occurs. The first is per trip. So that means I'm taking somebody to work and I've negotiated a flat rate for them to do that for me. There is a maximum flat rate. Again, I always like to stress you don't have to pay a person the maximum rate, certainly if they're not taking you very far. The second option in the friend, family, or coworker model is the per mile rate. And that rate is set by the Medicaid transportation rate, which is $1 for a modified vehicle and 50-some cents for non-modified, sorry. 60 cents, sorry. I can't keep all those numbers straight in my head. A good example of using the self-directed, per trip model or friend, family, neighbor, coworker model. So I have a job and maybe I'm having trouble finding transportation to get there, and Sarah and I strike up some conversations. I realize she lives down the street and we work the same schedule, and I might ask her, do you think you could bring me to work? I could pay you. And so we have that conversation, and then we go enter into an arrangement. Your SSA is going to send a referral to GT Independence. You're going to get enrolled with GT Independence if you don't already have self-directed services. And then Sarah, who I'm hiring, is also going to be enrolled with GT Independence. And again, whether you choose, to pay or reimburse that person per mile or to do a per trip rate is really up to you and the person you're hiring. The next thing we want to talk about is participant-directed goods and services. And just like Sarah had stressed at the beginning, every single person in this room is different. Everybody's needs are different, even if we have some of the same diagnoses. And not every item that is approved for person A under PDGS may be approved for person B under PDGS. The participant-directed goods and services are services, equipment, or supplies that are not otherwise provided through the waiver or through Medicaid state plan services that address an identified need in somebody's service plan. While certainly PDGS has offered flexibilities for folks, what we always have to remember is that these still are Medicaid dollars that are there for a person who has an assessed need. The ISP has to clearly link that participant-directed good and service to that assessed need. One of the handouts I know is something we refer to as the funnel, and that kind of walks you through that process. The team is sitting around, it's discovered you've got a need in a certain area, and you just kind of work your way down that funnel to determine whether or not that particular item or service would fall under participant-directed goods and services. While most participant-directed goods and services are approved by your local county board, there are some things that go to DODD for approval. These are things like generators, fences, and home modifications for the self-waiver recipients that are over $10,000. If DODD or if your local county board denies a participant-directed good and service, then due process will be issued and you have the opportunity to appeal that decision. Next slide, thank you, Sarah, is participant-directed goods and services are only in the self and the level 1 waivers. Payment for PDGS services gets funneled through the fiscal intermediary or GT independence. With the self waiver, there is no cap except for your budget limitation. So if you're a child on the self waiver or a adult on the self waiver, your maximum budget level is the most you can spend, obviously, on all of your services, but including PDGS. In the self waiver, home modifications and specialized medical equipment fall under participant-directed goods and services. And with most items, the provider is not required to be DODD Medicaid certified for that to go through as a PDGS service. In the level 1 waiver, where participant-directed goods and services was just added in July of 2022, there is a $2,500 cap. One of the reasons for that is, in the level 1 waiver, there is already a service for home modification, or for equipment, specialized medical equipment and environmental adaptations. And again, the provider is not required to be DODD or Medicaid certified for PDGS. When we talk about participant-directed goods and services, we do certainly always have to talk about the items that are prohibited in PDGS, and I think most of these are certainly understandable. Illegal items, food, tobacco, alcohol, internet, pools, etc. The one item I do certainly want to highlight that certainly causes angst occasionally is specialized services. And a specialized service is something that is exclusive to a person with a disability. The easiest example I can give is, for instance, the YMCA is absolutely an inclusive environment. But if you go there to take a class that is only for people with disabilities, that class is a specialized service. So it's not necessarily about the environment or the location, it's really about what it is that is being provided. So I am now going to turn it back over to Sarah.
All right, unless Cindy is dying to present. Okay. So there's a couple steps, right, to getting enrolled with GT. And yes, wow, transitions are fun, right? Okay, come on, guys. We just had the biggest, quickest transition ever, and we made it, and we all survived. So we're all super excited about that. I don't know about you, but there are steps to getting started with GT. The first step, again, happens at your person-centered meeting. Let's have conversations about self-directions. The step that introduces you to us is that your SSA is going to send in a referral to GT Independence. This is going to have information on it, like your name, your number, different identifiers used to be able to bill the waiver, to make sure we're getting able to pay people on time. The authorizations are going to be there. There's going to be a lot of information on this referral form. If you have a guardian, it's going to be on there too. We are then going to reach out. We're not reaching out to your SSA. We are not reaching out. We're going to reach out to yourself or your guardian because these are self-directed services, and as self-directed services, we work with you to get you enrolled in our system. There is paperwork that you will need to complete, giving us the permission to act on your behalf in order to use this Medicaid money. And those might look a little different, excuse me, that might look a little different on what service you're requesting, right? If you're looking for participant-directed goods and services, you're not going to have quite as many forms as if you're looking to be set up as an employer to have an employee work for you, right? So those can look a little different, but I promise there will be stuff to sign because they're self-directed services. So we're going to reach out. We're going to try and get a hold of you. If we can't get a hold of you, we're going to circle back to your SSA and say, like, hey, we're really struggling with this, and we would love your assistance, right? We're going to do our best to reach you and to work with you and complete an enrollment with you. As we do that, we're also going to look at any of your chosen vendors or your chosen staff, your chosen providers, right? If you're coming in and you have a provider identified, they're going to need, again, their DODD certification. We're going to need a way to get a hold of your provider so that we can get them their application. So when a person is providing services under PDHPC, they are the employee of the person on the waiver. So this means there is an application process, there's an I-9 form, there's different forms that need to be filled out because if you go to any job, right, you have an application, you have to show your ID, and a couple other things verifying you're eligible to work in the U.S. It is the same thing because the person on the waiver is the legal employer of the person who is working for them, okay? We're happy to walk through all this. We're going to get all of this information done. We're going to work with your vendors to get them enrolled in the services depending on the service. We have heard a lot of your feedback, a lot of your caring, right? And so we have been able to work with DODD to kind of cut any unnecessary things out, and we are continuing to refine that process, right? So we are definitely here to support. We want to hear your feedback. However, again, these are Medicaid dollars, so we as an FMS have a responsibility to make sure that we are protecting those Medicaid dollars and that we have a lot of steps in place, okay? If you are already enrolled with GT and you need to add a new provider, you need to add a new vendor, a new service, totally cool. You do not have to go through an additional enrollment. That's a one-time deal, right? Only once. You're in our system, and then we can go ahead, you can reach out to our customer service department, and we're gonna help you work with that and get up. Again, I have sat in team meetings, so this is why I'm such a nerd about this. I have sat in team meetings as a provider, as a parent, as an SSA, as a provider support person. I've been around a few of these meetings, and I love them, right? Use those meetings, use that planning conversation. You have so much flexibility in the way you do things, right? To have those things. But a person's ISP has to really encompass all the key components of what you're trying to achieve. So you have your ISP budget, right? Depending on what waiver, but you're going to really look at, like, what do I have available? What do I have available to use? What does the service cost? And have more of that. You have the ability, again, to negotiate your rate. to look at, you know, what sort of training you're trying to give to your employees, the treatment you want. And again, because self-direction is in all three waivers in different components, make sure, Joe literally spoke to this, if it's a level 1, you're not going to be pushing home mods through PDGS, right? You have something for that identified already in that waiver, whereas in self you are. So know yourself, know your waiver. There is an amazing online, I keep it pinned, is a waiver comparison chart that you can go through the Ohio Department of Medicaid, probably DODD, and you can see what pots of money there are, and if there are pots of money, right, you can do that, and then you can plan accordingly. It's all about being able to know what you're working with and have authority and ownership of your services. Some of the self-directed activities that the FMS is going to help with, right, that's going to be your employer payroll taxes. We assist and we make sure that we are getting the workers' comp and the unemployment taxes paid for on behalf of the employer, on behalf of the person on the waiver, and then looking at additional benefits. When you are providing PDHPC, you are a W-9, W-9, that's right? Yeah. I'm a tax person. You're a W-9 employee, right? So you are working for that person, that employer has taxes to pay on your behalf, and then you also have your state and federal taxes. So a W-2, oh my gosh, see, I told you. They pay me for really important stuff. It's all good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something really quick about the rate. So when you're negotiating a rate that you're going to pay your employee to care for you, understand that there's going to be more than that rate taken out of your budget, because that's the piece that where all the taxes take care of. So if I agree to pay my staff person $10 an hour, understand that what's going to come off my budget would be something more like 12% more than that. so you know, $1 more, so $11.20. So that's the piece that people also need to remember, and why it's really important to have these conversations and discussions is it's not just the $10 an hour that's going to come out of your waiver budget. You've got to account for the tax piece because you're the employer. Much like if you work for an organization or an agency, you know, an agency gets a certain rate for an HPC services, and then they take care of all the tax stuff. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and we have a lot, I think on one of these slides, we're gonna have a link to our website, and we have a lot of information, so like your hourly pay, so what you're offering is an hourly pay versus what's coming out of your waiver actually, right? So there's a lot of really cool resources on there we're really excited to share. And again, a good point to say is that communication is critical, okay? Like making sure you're communicating, we're gonna make sure we're communicating. I think you hopefully have seen like our operations team and myself, we really have been trying to make sure that you know, we are letting people know what's going on, where we're standing. Something I've really seen and been so appreciative of, again, yes, we know that we do have forms that vendors and places need to fill out in order to receive, right, the money for the PDGS. I've been able to work with so many really, really great parents who have connections at places and are like, hey, this dance class really supports my daughter's development and it meets the PDGS rule requirement. And maybe you're just a small little, you know, dance studio, but would you consider having these conversations with me about a different way to pay that would help benefit my daughter? So make sure, you know, you as the person directing your services, let's continue to have those conversations. I never, ever, ever mind having conversations with anyone to introduce to them GT, to introduce the idea of self-direction. It's something that we believe very strongly in. But it always means the most coming from the person where that relationship exists, right? It's easier for me to go have a conversation with this dance studio that my daughter has used in the past, or that maybe some other kids that I know, than for, a random organization to come and say like, hello, I would like to pay you money with Medicaid dollars. We don't say that, we're a little smoother. But so like, just continue to remember that in self-directed services, we want that communications. These services are born out of relationships, right? They're born out of me making a connection and saying, hey, I would love it if you would help support me. And so that's really that authority, that autonomy, that just ability to go out, connect, and to choose the services in your life is something that we really very much believe in and we want to see happen. So I think, I don't know where David went off to. I do have a link. If you go to gtsd.org and go to our Ohio page, we have heard, again, we appreciate everyone's feedback. We appreciate how involved everyone is in this and invested. I'm just so grateful for you all. We have developed numerous resources that will kind of walk you through the different steps, requirements of self-directed transportation, our enrollment process, our participant-directed goods and services workflow. Like, we have been working on these for months. We want you to have all the information. We want you to feel confident to go out there, direct the crap out of your services. And so please make sure to visit our website. Feel free to shoot me an email. My email's up there and we will give you that link.
Sorry, I'm sure and I think there's you.
Yeah.
And so certainly anytime anybody has any questions, I know David had said at the beginning, I'm Jolie Carlson, and I am one of the policy managers in the Medicaid division. I do supervise the waiver policy technical assistance team, so I know that has been shared out through all the previous presentations. That is my group. Certainly we will always do our best to reply as soon as we can, and again, help everybody understand the benefits, responsibilities, and parameters around self-direction and anything else you may have. The waiver policy TA at dodd.ohio.gov email address is the best to use rather than a personal email, because I do have a small team of folks that we answer questions from that mailbox. Any questions?
Naoka's like, stop talking to you.
She says hesitantly, any questions? The self-directed transaction card. So it's just one of a couple of ways we can pay for self-directed transportation. So I don't know that we want to go too much into the details of the card itself. It's just it's a method of payment. So you would go about self-directed transportation the same way you would, any other way of requesting it. So you would work with your county board to get self-directed transportation, and then it's a payment method. It is a card similar to a debit or credit card. It can only be used for transportation, though. It's been tested and proven to only be able to be used for transportation. No rentals, anything like that. I will say that it's still, your vendors still have to you still have to go through the application process, all of that. So your ISP would still have to have all of your providers identified. So it still functions the same way. It's just another method of payment. So I don't know if that's helpful.
It provides controlled spontaneity. I know, we deal with a lot of Medicaid dollars, and the Medicaid funds are generally not super spontaneous. Our system is not super spontaneous, but I'd like to consider this controlled spontaneity. So it affords that flexibility within the Medicaid rules and regulations.
Did you have a question?
Thank you. So how do you determine, can someone get alternative therapies using this waiver? Like, what are you using as your guideline for experimental therapies? Do you mean like experimental drugs, or specifically, like, let's just pick cranial sacral therapy.
Okay.
Are we able to get cranial sacral therapy using self-directed funding?
So that would be something that would go through participant-directed goods and services. That would really be the only service that something like that could possibly go through. And so that would mean you would have to have a self or a level 1.
Yes, so now are you saying, because I'm trying to understand the W-9 versus W-2 part.
Okay.
So are
you're
you saying that
yeah.
for us to get cranial sacral?
No. So that's part of the participant-directed home or personal care.
Okay, so if you're gonna just take their taxes out ahead of time, they wouldn't get an opportunity to deduct any expenses against their taxes? Because W-2 allows very little deductions against your earned income versus W-9. And I'm just trying to get clarity. I'm trying to find a way to get help with some of the therapies that really help my son. That's where I'm really stuck financially, and so I'm just wondering if maybe this self-waiver is a way that could help us get what he needs.
So do you have a waiver now?
We have an IO waiver.
You have an IO waiver.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't give it up.
Yeah, no. So I think maybe it's better if we have a conversation.
No, that's okay. I'm just like,
Yeah.
my first time here, so I just.
Yeah, so, if you want to contact, I can give you my personal information. You got it? Okay, all right. I think it's better if we talk.
I'm in a conference right now.
Oh.
Not today. I'll be home later, okay? But Malika and Papa are home right now.
New PNM system, which I tried to get on there, it's not very user friendly. I called helpline, they told me to call Medicaid, and they told me to call NO, and then, I just went around in circles and circles and circles, just to, trying to help somebody who's re-certified, let alone being a new person. So I think even if you find someone, is there some way that we could get some help for people that are trying to be a provider, so they know all the classes they have to take and scan data and, the 8 hours, and, is there some central program or some number that we can follow and get that kind of help?
So you're looking for assistance with new certification or recert?
Well, both.
Both.
I mean, it was, there's a guru with Franklin County, and she helped me do that. And, but if I hadn't talked to her, I had no clue, because I was just in circles, and I've been doing this for 20 years.
So your county provider support is an option, but certainly we are going to be working on, that is one of my focuses coming up here is certification and improving that process.
Because it's very cumbersome, all the things, I mean, not that it's not well worth it,
I
but it's
understand.
very cumbersome, and a lot of people are like, oh, they didn't.
Yeah, I do understand.
And also maybe, I mean, can we advertise or something that, the governor was on there about COVID every day? I mean, can we go on and say, have little spots on TV, the Ohio Department of Health does it or whatever. We need healthcare providers and, something on it.
I'll be home. But I'm at a meeting right now.
I'm sorry, but until we start
I
offering
wanted to
benefits,
just go back when you first started.
Until we start offering
Participant-directed
benefits, we're still not gonna say,
HPC is
girl.
available on the IO, the level 1, and the self. It's only PDGS, the participant-directed goods and services, that is limited to self and level 1. So if we have an IO waiver, we can do PDHPC. I just wanted to make sure.
They need like 2-day class, just say like every other month, we're gonna have a 2-day class to get people certified.
So I hear you saying, talking about two different things. You would like us to do more promotion on direct support professionals. So that's one issue. Then your second issue is you'd like us to somehow get out a resource for people on certification. Am I hearing your two issues? Okay. So, I can definitely try to get something out, in a communication area about, a better
where she
resource
was?
for people on certification. Because right now, if people contact me, I can connect them with someone, but if everyone contacts me, that's gonna be nearly impossible. So I can certainly, I'll get with Gary about getting some kind of communication out with a better connection, a better resource for people on certification, okay?
One of our computer dummies to work with IT so that they can screenshot and go step by step.
Hey, Mary.
The whole process.
We are going to improve the checklist.
Can I-
So that is one of our topics that we're doing.
Can they think about maybe delegating a day or two, maybe every other month, where they can get independent providers to come into a classroom, help them get through the whole process? Because I have lost so many potentials because they getting through that system and then they have to wait 3 months to get, who wants a job? And then they have to pay to do it. So
we're going to repeat the question.
Okay, so the question was, could we talk about getting a day or two for independent providers to come in and meet?
and get through the process.
Get through the process. So we can talk about that. The only thing close to that we've talked about is office hours. You know how accreditations in different departments do office hours. We have talked about that with certification. So I can talk about what you're talking about. That would be a lot of man. I mean, I'm not making excuses. Our certification area is not that large. So, but I can.
But if you did a group with one person and you had a classroom.
I understand. But I'll see.
Couldn't they
I'm
make-
committed. I will tell you, I'm committed to improving certification. But I have to look at,
I get it.
what's reasonable.
Let's go over to Francie.
Okay.
Well, that was my question too. It's just on provider certification.
Okay.
I hear a lot of different things
Yep.
from other people, like, is it still 30 days
Yes.
supposedly? Or is it, once the reviewer does say it's another 30 days, it's 30 days?
It is 30 days.
Everything is accurate.
It is 30 days.
30 days.
Yes.
And that's to send it to Medicaid or to be done?
No, it's 30 days to send to Medicaid.
Usually
Once
it's
it goes to
30 days. It
Medicaid,
depends on
unfortunately,
what
they
they
have their own clock.
Okay.
So it's 30 days at
And I
DODD.
did.
Okay.
Stuck
Thank
in
you.
there.
You are welcome.
Andy, over here.
Are you still?
No, I was able Alan.
Gary knows almost everybody. Gary knows by name almost everybody.
Could we request too that perhaps since the last
That's because we're the
EES
troublemakers.
training we did last year, that the Q&A be updated as well? I think that might help
Okay.
a lot of the families in the audience today with self-waivers.
Okay.
In addition, the other mom that asked a question a few minutes ago about criminal sacral therapy.
I kind of
I have families occasionally, more frequently now, worried about mental health counseling for their children as well. And so it depends on what waiver you have.
Yes.
And if they are certified through the DD system as to giving them a private pay option when they're not Medicaid certified. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are 2 points, 2 ideas, 2 points of clarification. And then lastly, about the certification process, we have been working with DODD and families are involved in that, and IOPA knows. I'm on the fence about whether or not to ask for special requests for families who are providers getting certified. There used to be a fast track where we could fast track an immediate need for our independent providers to get through the system. I think that still needs to be discussed and on the table, how to fast track it. This business of Medicaid taking up more time than the already 30 days is really killing our families and personally our families' lives. So I think we'd all like to see that crunched down, or at least have a fast track or a new way of doing business. But that's gonna require some rule changes and take longer. If the families in the audience today and in the future are willing to wait for that process, we'll probably end up getting there, is what I'm saying. But we'll support you in
Just for working on the update, really needs to be done.
Yes, and
Medicaid too.
just so,
Yeah, I know.
right, sure, just so the group knows, yes, we are working with the family group to, as I mentioned earlier, improve certification. We're starting with things that do not require major rule changes or major system changes. And I think that we can make pretty significant improvements there and get our process moving. And then we'll move to major rule changes and system work, because in our world, system work takes a long time, because anything that changes in our system also changes at Medicaid. So that's what Amy's talking about, just to kind of clarify further.
Thanks again.
Appreciate work. And I've added someone to our group from today, Amy. Okay.
So,
Okay.
I just want to thank you all for all the work that's been done to help increase the wages, first of all. I'm an independent provider, and I do service and solve clients. I think you can speak a little bit to the fact of why it's so hard to find us, and that's simply because it's more work for less money to us independent providers, which I think you're aware of. One of the issues I have, and it's one of the questions I was going to ask earlier, is that admin portion of the wage component. And when these kind of things happen, like to service a self-client, there simply is a lot more paperwork. There's a whole second system I have to log into, that I have to ensure matches. I have a couple hours just this week alone contacting GT, trying to find out why I'm getting paid differently than what I'm submitting. So all of this extra work, so to speak. Are there any plans to help kind of streamline that process for us, or to make it more equitable so that it's more attractive for us to serve these clients versus deterring us from serving these clients?
So you're talking more about like the billing structure and things on the GT side? I guess I'm not.
Yes, it's more work, and we make less money to serve these clients in general. I really have an issue just with the admin portion of our wage component. I mean, the work you've done to increase the wage portion, so thankful for. But the admin portion of our wage component, which used to be readily available when I started doing this 13 years ago, was actually part of the billing training. It told us, this is what you get for your job. This is what you get to attend ISP meetings. This is what you get for the billing and the admin. That info is not findable anymore. If it is, please direct me to it, because I have looked and looked and looked and I can't find it. And I really, as an independent provider, want to begin advocating for an increase to that admin portion of our wages. Not that I'm not thankful for the support portion being increased, but when I started doing this, I did not have EBB that I even had to do, and there was not personal funds. There's just been a lot more unfunded mandates, I guess is what I would call them, that you could add it to our responsibilities that we have to do to keep the job, but you're not paying us anything additional as you keep adding these things for us to have to do. And it's taking time away from my family that I do not get paid for, and it is not currently structured in there, as far as I can tell, because I have not been able to find this information since EBD got put back in, so I don't know what portion of my pay is for admin.
Is admin.
And has it been increased in the last 20 years?
I think the percentage of admin has stayed consistent, but I think it's the amount that the feds allow. I don't think
It's just arguably that, like, if it stayed consistent, the amount of work we would do for that admin is greatly increased, because you have changed the way we do business.
But I believe that Ohio pays the amount that is allowed by the federal government. I think CMS in particular recently has come out very strongly to say that a certain amount has to go to the wage, and that only so much can go to administration. So I would have to go back and check, but I believe that's my recollection.
so we're going to talk about some of that in the next session, but what's been mentioned is that EVV is a federal mandate, not a state mandate. Medicaid requirements on keeping a poverty level is a federal mandate, not a state mandate. So Dave and I are hopefully going to get your opinion. We know what you, but we want to gather your opinions, because we've done an excellent job in contacting our state legislature to get these raises, but now we need to go one up
to contact our senators and representatives in Washington, because they are unfunded mandates, and it's at the Washington level.
Right, and so I would love to be able to advocate for that, but without even knowing where I stand today, because where I stood 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's hard to accurately advocate for that.
Okay, we got the last two, I promise.
Agency. And I think I'm a little confused about the $10,000. Do you need to have $10,000 in credit? Do you need to have $10,000?
I just ate three.
I ate two. One second ago.
You have to have a $10,000 line of credit.
For 90 days, or at
Yep.
least 90 days, right?
Correct.
And so, I guess my question is also, what does that mean?
The intent is that you have the ability to make your payroll, that you have something to fall back on if you would not receive, you know, your payments.
So you need $10,000
Correct.
So they want you to have
I can maybe respond, but
I was on the committee that talked about that. What we've been experiencing is a number of independents want to become agencies because the rate is higher, and they take the individuals they're supporting now, and they add to that, and then it's not just the Medicaid, it's just not the certification side, it's the pay side, that you've got now all of these employees, and you don't have the cash to pay all of these employees, and the Department of DD and Medicaid aren't paying you, and you go out of business.
It's a safeguard for making sure services are delivered.
Right. It really is a safeguard that people are still getting the services they need. You go out of business, and now we've got 10, 15, 20 people that don't have a service provider because you didn't have the money to pay your staff. That's what it's for.
It's a safeguard in the system in the sense that we've seen a lot of people start up an agency in our system, make promises to the families and the individuals served, and then they don't have the financial backing, and they go out of business and leave families high and dry and their loved ones. So it's a way to try to make sure that you've got a financial business plan and you've got money in the bank in case a Medicaid system is delayed in paying you. Because remember, it's reimbursement for services delivered. It's not like you get a bucket of money.
Yes, this is regarding transportation. An individual actually self-waiver, and their non-medical transportation has been
That's who I met out there.
messing them up to get to their community employment. Okay, and let's say the self-person has a provider that provides services. Can that individual ask their provider to take them to and from work and still get compensated, like you were talking about the different types of transportation, like your family, friends, co-worker?
So you would like the self-directed transportation to be used to go to work?
Yes, can the person use their provider that's not providing services, can they also provide the transportation service because they may be more committed to getting them to and from their community employment? Because they're in the process of losing their community employment because their transportation service isn't getting them there.
Yes.
But they know their provider could get them there, and they trust that provider to get them there, but they can't provide both services.
Yes, self-directed transportation can be used to get a person anywhere. So that provider would just have to get enrolled in everything with GT Independence.
They're already providing services on an HPC level.
PBHPC, so
Yes.
yes, yeah, they could.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I have a question.
As far as the $10,000 line of credit, it has been circulating that some agencies are like grandfathered in and they don't have to have a line of credit. I haven't seen that anywhere, so that's why I want to ask that on this platform, if you can answer. Is there a certain time frame that those agencies are grandfathered in and don't have to have the $10,000?
If they, right, yeah, because it's for new certifications, right?
No, No, there are some agencies that has been agencies for over 15 years. Then there's some agencies that have been agencies for like 40 years. And the ones that are saying they're older than 15 years, they're saying, no, we're grandfathered in. We don't have to have the line of credit. But the ones that just got certified, like maybe right before COVID or right during COVID or something like that, is this line of credit only for those newer agencies?
That's what I said.
So what is the time frame that is that they have to have that line left?
Yeah, I would probably need to check.
Yeah, so when the new rule for certification came into effect, which was right before the pandemic, anyone that attempted to become an agency after that had to have the $10,000 line of credit. If you were already certified, you fell under the old certification rules. No, you weren't grandfathered in. This is just a new ticket to ride agency certification.
Okay, could I speak with you?
Yeah,
Find out what
please.
was that time? When did it go into place?
Right before the pandemic.
But it's still, okay, but that's, like I said, a long time frame.
Yeah, it was. It was over
So
3
that's
years
what I'm
ago.
trying to get narrowed down to. the
Now,
date.
anyone that is applying for certification, now, so you're not listening to me.
I am.
Yeah, so I don't mean to be rude. Anyone, the certification rule became effective on this date, probably 4 years ago. Anyone that applied to be an agency after that date had to have a $10,000 line of credit. Everyone before that date already was certified as an agency. So they weren't grandfathered in. This is
I understand that, so I'm just asking what was the date? That's it.
4 years ago.
It'll be in the rule.
It's in the rule. It's about 4 years ago.
Have a date.
Yeah, yeah, it's just, right. Yeah, so I want to thank this team very much. I want to thank this lady in particular. Now, she has been wonderful to work with. Not that she's going anywhere, but we all get answers late at night. We get them early in the morning. And I just want to personally thank you.
11, 12 o'clock at night, so
The lady who asked a question last session about shared living and HPC to two different people, is she still here? Still here? Can I come see you? Okay.
you want to know what you're talking to her about. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you win? I got up to 300 out there.
Well, you're close, sister.
I got up to 600.
Yeah.
Did you? I just cashed it out. But I gotta go pick up a birthday.
I don't know that you would know this. I should have thought to ask him it, but it just popped into my head. So, like, they have a rate structure for
Yeah.
and they have a maximum
For a couple of minutes and then we went
and
to
then
the
per
shit.
hour. So I'm on that. I'm on my daughter's.
You gotta gamble. See you later. Good luck.
With the rate increases coming, the budget increases coming in 2024,
I knew last
will they
year.